Hello team, Safety Dave here. So this morning I'm going to go over the Bellevue Plaza COVID-19 Prevention Field Protocol. This was revised on 10/22 and this document was updated on 10/29. So the following site-specific safety plan, this is intended to address guidelines recommended by the CDC and public health agencies to help prevent the continuing spread of COVID-19. That is its purpose. So in this protocol, you will notice, COVID-19, it kind of defines what it is. It's an infection of the airways. It's easily spread from person to person. Of course, all of us are familiar with COVID-19 by now, as it's been going on for almost 2 years. This person is coughing, sneezing, speaking, or breathing, especially when masks are not being worn or when activity occurs indoors in poorly ventilated areas. Anyone can get COVID-19, but it can be very dangerous for people over 60 years old. People with underlying medical conditions like heart disease, lung disease, or diabetes, and people with weakened immunity systems. So the purpose of this plan, which will be referred to as the plan, is to reduce the chance of transmitting this virus in our shops, offices, and on our job sites. Protect people and their families and reduce the spread of virus, sustain continuity of business, and give workers assurance of a safe work site. So it is expected that every Walters & Wolf employee will be responsible and comply with the requirements of this plan. Management reserves the right to change and make exceptions to any part of the plan at any time for any reason. So the protocol is employees should know and self-monitor for the following symptoms. So you get fevers or chills, if you have cough, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, fatigue, muscle or body aches, headache, new loss of taste or smell, sore throat, congestion or runny nose, nausea or vomiting, and diarrhea. If anyone experiences any of these symptoms, they are to notify your supervisor right away and leave or not come to work until approved by management to do so. So whoever your supervisor is, contact them, whether it's Brian, whether it's Curtis, whether it's Tom, and most likely usually we'll always try to make sure you get a hold of Tom. If you have any of those symptoms, call, communicate, and then as you'll notice, this plan will outline that management will decide in the next steps. So, number 2, all employees or visitors are required to wear a mask or face covering that fully covers their nose and mouth while indoors of a Walters & Wolf facility or while indoors on a job site, unless one of the following exceptions are applicable. You are alone in a personal office or cubicle when no one else is within 6 feet of you. You are outdoors and maintain at least 6 feet from others. You are actively eating or drinking and maintaining 6 feet from others. And for visibility and safety reasons, while maintaining at least 6 feet physical distance from others, employees are not required to wear a mask while operating a forklift, while operating an aerial lift, such as scissor or boom, if it's single-person occupancy. So if there's 2 of you in the lift, working within 6 feet, you have to wear a mask, and while performing duties as a designated signal person or bellman. So while communicating with the crane operator, or in the event of deliveries, if you are the person, bellman or signal person, then you do not have to wear a mask, so you can clearly communicate instructions. Frequent hand washing. Number 3 is frequent hand washing throughout the day is encouraged. Hands must be washed after removing gloves before or after eating. So on our site, we have hand sanitizer. And if you can't find any hand sanitizer, find the nearest porta potty, and there should be hand sanitizer in there as well. But we should have hand sanitizer. And if you don't have any available, talk to your site supervisor. And number 4, current schedules and methods of sanitation in the workplace shall continue. So testing for COVID-19 and return to work. So if you have symptoms and a negative COVID-19 test may be required to safely return to work in all types of scenarios of employees experiencing COVID-19 symptoms or being potentially or factually exposed to COVID-19. Number 2, unknown exposure is described as an employee experiencing COVID-19-like symptoms or exposure to others that experience COVID-19 like symptoms, regardless of mask usage. If an employee develops multiple persisting COVID-19 symptoms lasting more than a day or two, or are in cumulative close contact of 15 minutes with a person experiencing COVID-19 like symptoms, regardless of vaccination status, they should stay home from work and obtain a viral COVID-19 test and must be approved by management to return to work. So what does this mean? So unknown exposure. So someone experiencing COVID-19 symptoms. If an employee develops multiple persisting symptoms or are in close contact for more than 15 minutes with a person experiencing symptoms, regardless of your vaccination status, you should stay home at work and obtain a COVID test. And you must be approved by management to return. So I have this, an employee who's test negative, so if you get a negative test after testing, regardless of vaccination status, is encouraged to stay home while symptoms are present, but is not required to maintain isolation from work as long as management approves return to work. So the foundation of this rule is communicate. I mean, that's the essence of it. Communicate. So if you have symptoms, you go get tested, it's negative, just call management, call your supervisor, and then follow their direction. So that makes that pretty easy. So an employee who tests positive, regardless of your vaccination status, must isolate from work for at least 10 days since the symptoms first appeared. So you wake up in the morning or the night before, you have, fatigue, headache, shortness of breath, a fever. You call in, hey, Tom, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to go get a test. You go get a test. It comes back positive. You're going to, from that day, from the day or time that you started experiencing the symptoms, that's when the 10-day mark starts. So you'll isolate from work for at least 10 days. So your return to work must meet the following criteria after a positive COVID-19 test. At least 10 days have passed since symptoms began, or 10 days have passed since the person was tested if no symptoms were experienced, and symptoms have noticeably improved and no new symptoms have developed, and the employee has been fever-free for at least 24 hours without use of fever-reducing medication, and you are approved by management to return to work. So, like I said, this plan can be found on the safety bulletin board in the safety documentation file holder. You can review this. It's on page 2 of the revision down here. So you can review that at any time if you're not sure of what that means. But this new plan kind of simplifies what the old plan was trying to say. And number 3, known exposure, regardless of mask use, is described as an employee who are informed of close contact to another person who has tested positive for COVID-19. So it could be a household member, say your household member tested positive, regardless of vaccination status. The employee isolation from work until household members meet government health authority to safely return to work. Get tested 3 to 5 days after known positivity of household member and 3 to 5 days after household member meets government health authority criteria to safely return to work. Monitor for symptoms after second test and immediately isolate from work if COVID-19 symptoms develop until approved by management to return to work. So B, fully vaccinated employees. An employee is considered fully vaccinated for COVID-19 when it has been more than equal to 2 weeks after they received the second dose series of your Pfizer or Moderna, or more than equal to 2 weeks after you received your single dose vaccine of Janssen. Do not need to isolate from work unless instructed by management. Monitor for symptoms and immediately isolate from work if COVID-19 symptoms develop, and get tested 3 to 5 days after the exposure, even if no symptoms develop. And remember, if you have any questions regarding these, talk to your site supervisor or myself for clarity. And C, partially or non-vaccinated, fully vaccinated employees. do not need to isolate from work unless instructed by management. Monitor for symptoms and immediately isolate from work if COVID-19 symptoms develop. Get tested 3 to 5 days after exposure, even if no symptoms develop. And D, unvaccinated employees do not need to isolate from work unless instructed by management. Monitor for symptoms and immediately isolate from work if COVID-19 symptoms develop, and get tested 3 to 5 days after exposure, and again 11 to 14 days after the exposure, even if no symptoms develop. So this is in regards to testing for COVID-19 protocol. If you experience a known exposure, all right? Now, number 4 is any employee who is tested for COVID-19 should provide documentation of test results to your supervisor, to a Walters and Wolf safety manager, which would be myself or Stuart, or management for record, all right? So make sure you save the proof of that test, no matter what it is, all right? So anything you get from the doctor's note, proof of test, just save all that documentation, okay? Number 5, each situation will be evaluated individually by management and the Walters and Wolf safety team. Exceptions may be taken with consideration of the circumstances of each occurrence. So employees that report directly to a job site are to follow the COVID-19 site-specific plan that is required by the general contractor for that site or the Walters and Wolf plan, whichever is more stringent. If an employee is unsure about their ability to return to a job site, they should contact a member of the Walters and Wolf safety team for clarification. So if you're not sure whether you should return, just give me a call and we'll go ahead and address it and figure it out. So if GLY, this is regarding Bellevue Plaza, this is what this plan is for. If their plan is more stringent than our plan, which it is not, you're to follow that. And regarding GLY's, remember that every Tuesday, starting at 6, they do COVID rapid testing. We call it Rapid Test Tuesday. So make sure you communicate with your site supervisor, Tom Giles, Brian, or Curtis, and regarding what time Tom wants you to show up for that testing. All right. In-person meetings and gatherings. So they are encouraging virtual or outdoor meetings and gatherings whenever possible. In-person meetings and gatherings shall be limited to groups of 5 persons, and all attendees will wear a mask. So while we're gathering during our morning huddles, we need to maintain 6 feet from each other, and we need to maintain that 6 feet throughout the meeting and have it outdoors. Once we start closing in the building and we have those meetings, we're going to have to start wearing masks. So enforcing the plan, we're going to go ahead and continue to monitor compliance with this program. Guys, we have to follow this plan. And we have to follow GLY's plan too. We don't want to be, getting in trouble for anything. So and like I said, if you're not unsure of any of this explanation, just let me know. So COVID-19 workplace, visitors who will be in Walters and Wolf facility for 30 minutes or more must have their temperature taken and sign into a visitor log. They must include their phone number and email address. Visitors must adhere to Walters and Wolf COVID-19 protocol and PPE policy. So if we bring visitors onto site, vendors, whoever we might bring on, we need to make sure that they don't have any COVID-19 symptoms. Make sure they check in at the front gate, do the QR code for GLY. And then we'll take their information just in case, there's an exposure. COVID-19, if someone employee is tested and confirmed to be positive, COVID-19 after experiencing symptoms while in or around a Walters and Wolf facility, management will notify any employees that may have had close contact with the person so they can closely self-monitor for symptoms. So whenever traveling in a vehicle for company-related business, if more than one person is in the vehicle, all persons shall wear a mask or face covering while inside of the vehicle. So that's for ride sharing if you're on the clock and riding in a Walters and Wolf vehicle to, say, another job site. So if you're riding with Pete, make sure you guys wear a mask. That's it, guys. Like I said, GLY mandates rapid test Tuesday testing, COVID testing, right there in the Rite Aid parking lot in the same area where we do emergency evacuation rally area. So if you have any questions, reach out to me, give me a call, or talk to your site supervisor. Thank you.